Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Potato Goose podcast. This episode, we're going to have someone else joining us, a very special guest. We have Krishan Kanda coming all the way over from London to talk about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Welcome.
Hello there. Might I just say it's an honor to be here. I'm an avid listener, and it's been one of my dreams ever since I was a little kid to join this podcast.
We're thrilled to have you here. It's an honor.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind.
Okay, so in this episode, we're going to be talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the series, and specifically, we're going to be analyzing Jake and Amy, and a lot of issues that they have throughout the show, how they develop, how they really grow as people, how they sort of mature throughout the show. And also, it's going to be a lot of spoilers, so we definitely recommend that you watch it before you listen to this podcast. We think.
Thank God I'm all caught up.
Yep. Definitely. Alright, so starting with Jake, he could be considered as the main character of the show, as a lot of the events are focused on him and how he perceives them. However, I wouldn't call him the main character directly, because we also see lives of other people developing and their issues as well. So it kind of focuses not only on Jake, but on the other characters as well. Terry, Amy, Holt, everyone basically.
Yeah.
And an interesting fact that we can notice about Jake, sort of from the beginning of the show, is that he's really childlike throughout the entire series. So he's different from his coworkers. He often enjoys using comedy in maybe not the most appropriate situations. You could say the murder scene is not a very fun environment, per se.
Or when he makes the criminals in the lineup sing "I Want It That Way," it's a very good sign of
That was a
he's
good
definitely
moment.
not responsible. That was a beautiful one.
Right, but what I think is interesting is that even though he does enjoy his work in some places that like maybe could be considered not the most appropriate, he still takes it very seriously, and he is a very good detective and gets a lot of arrests done in a month period, right?
Yeah, definitely is very good at his job despite his attitude towards some of the crimes he sees.
Exactly.
I think one beautiful analogy of how he acts towards his job, the very beginning, when Terrence gives us an idea of all of the different detectives, he tells us how the only mystery he cannot solve is one about growing up. And
What a great
I think
quote.
that one scene is a brilliant way to show at the very beginning how his attitude towards everything is.
Exactly. I mean, he's a great detective, but he still uses comedy a lot in in
His life in general.
yeah, in his everyday life. And I
Yeah.
think like some of that can be related to his parents' divorce when he was a young child.
Yeah.
Right? Because as the series develops, we find out more things about Jake that kind of explain his attitude, right? And the episode where he is persecuting a murderer, which turns out to be a therapist, we find out that Jake really blames himself for his parents' divorce and sort of uses comedy as a coping mechanism, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's difficult for him to confront his childhood issues, so he kind of uses that comedy to just laugh it up, you know?
Another brilliant way in which he uses comedy to sort of get rid of this tension in his life. Sorry, not comedy. Another way he gets rid of this tension in his life and like the
Yep.
burden he has put on himself is by relinquishing the role of a father to someone else. For example, Captain Holt, and slightly Terry as well throughout the show. In the
Yeah.
way that he,
I
like,
can see.
calls, for example, Holt dad, or the way that he seeks his approval in what he does.
Yeah. We also find out in one of the episodes that he's basically had these daddy issues with a lot of male figures throughout his life, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of people who are just like a little bit older than him have been sort of like a father figure, because, well, in my opinion, his mind is sort of seeking someone to replace his father, who has not been the best dad he could have been to Jake.
Exactly. It really shows in his stunted growth, his attitude towards what he does.
Precisely. And I think that it's really interesting how he kind of finds his sort of new father figure in Holt, and how their relationship grows a lot throughout the series. And in the end, we see that they truly love each other,
Yeah.
because Jake sees Holt as sort of his father, mentor slash father, and is really happy that their relationship developed that way. Because at the start of the series, they're sort of hostile towards each other. Jake doesn't like the rules. Holt doesn't like Jake's attitude. But with time, they sort of grow sort of fond of each other, right? So
Yeah.
Holt takes some of Jake's tendencies, and Jake matures a lot, becomes more serious.
It really does show the amount of growth that another person could have. Well, sorry, the effect and how much growth you can undertake because of the effect of a boss or a mentor, even simply the friends around you.
Yep.
We see through the bet between Jake and Emmy how they strive to be better detectives. But we also see in how their relationship matures and grows when they date each other, and how having someone like that, like Amy, someone who's serious, next to you by your side, can really be an aid in your development.
Exactly. So that is to say that they're fine by themselves, but when together they become something much greater, you know?
Yeah.
And well, talking about another person who's very fond of Holt, Amy is another very interesting character throughout the show who also see develop a lot, right? So at the start, we see Amy as this uptight person, this very controlling, loves to plan absolutely everything. And well, as we've mentioned before, she's also very much obsessed for approval and respect from her superiors. And in this
Exactly.
case, them being Captain Holt.
Yeah. She
So
tells us directly at the start of the show how the new captain is someone that she's looking to mentor her, as if she sees herself as unfit as is and needs to grow, which is in striking criticism of Jake's character, who he sees himself as already perfect, and so he doesn't need any change.
Yep.
Hence his rebelliousness when it comes to Holt trying to fix his bad habits, such as his tardiness.
Right. And so Amy sort of strives to become a better person throughout the entire show, and she doesn't quite stop wanting to become better, even though she's ready to mentor someone else. Like we see in the episode when she tries to get mentored from an organization and gets mixed up with Terry because he thinks that she wants to be a mentor to someone else. It really
Yeah,
shows that
yeah.
she thinks of herself as sort of inferior to
Inferior.
others, right? That she can't
She
perceive
undermines her progress.
exactly. She doesn't have a very good self-esteem because she constantly thinks that she can be better, and I think that competitiveness, can be traced back to her having a lot of male siblings.
Exactly.
With which,
7 brothers.
yep, that's
That
crazy.
must be extremely difficult to live with.
Exactly, and
I
as
can barely stand one.
me too, I completely relate to that. And well, yeah, that I can also sort of explain the root of her sort of passionate feminism, right? Because she constantly tries to prove that she, as a woman, is independent and strong and doesn't need anyone, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, when she tries to make Gina change her own tire, right? She's a very strong woman in her own, and she also tries to make everyone else as strong a female as she is. I think that's really
She
inspiring.
definitely strives to make everyone around her improve, and not necessarily in a way that she may recognize. Her influence across all of her co-workers is really something that's admirable. Never have I seen someone that really tries this hard to bring out the best in other people. despite having little to no reason to believe in them in the first place. For example, the relationship between Gina and Amy isn't necessarily something you'd look for. Obviously, often being bullied by Gina, called inferior, kind of showing why she sort of has this inferiority complex at the beginning of the show. But when she really does try her hardest to improve these people, it goes to show how strong she is and how much she ends up developing.
Right, and I think that even though some people can be mean to her or sort of bully her, that they show that they still love Amy in their own sort of unnoticeable maybe way. You know,
Mm,
but like when Gina ends up leaving the precinct,
yeah,
we see that she indeed loved Amy, and that's why she tells her to never change to be herself. Because
yeah.
even though she may have treated her poorly, made fun of her, that they still had a close relationship, like a
Agreed.
special one, a unique one that no one else had.
I feel like that's a trait we often see with the characters, like not necessarily just Jake and Amy, but how the strong bonds develop through their actions. It's quite an admirable one.
Yep. Well, I think that's enough for today. We should wrap it up.
Yep.
We thank you for listening to the Potato Goose podcast, and we will see you in the next one.
Well, thank you for having me. It was lovely to be here. Goodbye.
Take care.